Hello, welcome to the Philippines Debrief. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking about my entire trip in the Philippines, from the good, the bad, and the damn right ugly. And this will be posted on my podcast tab on my YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this on your afternoon walk, perhaps, I hope you enjoy. And if you're watching this live, because I actually decided to film this as a live stream on my channel, then hello. There's currently nearly 200 people in the chat. So in between my tales from the Philippines, I'll be answering questions and addressing some interesting things that come up in the chat. And yeah, the basic outline for today is going through each of the destinations that I went to and sharing with you some of the behind the scenes, some of the things that I wasn't able to capture, and go into some more of the negatives of my experience. I'll be sharing a lot of the good stuff as well, but obviously, a lot of things don't get filmed, a lot of things don't make the edit, and I tried to be actually more positive than normal. I think in Laos, in Cambodia, and in Vietnam, I tend to be a little bit more of a miserable bastard than most travel vloggers. So I decided to be, you know what, Paddy, no matter what happens, keep it positive and you can save all the bad stuff for the debrief. So I decided to do that. So, hello Marietta. She says, oh my God, you're live. It's good to see you here. So, let's begin. And if you are watching this, then have a look in the timestamps below, because you'll be able to skip along to the most interesting parts that you find. So, we're going to begin by talking about a disclaimer. Okay, I've got it all written down, very professional today. I've got a little document. So, basically, I need to just let you know that everything that I'm going to be telling you and sharing about my time in the Philippines is exactly that. It was my time in the Philippines, my experiences, my trip. What happened to me probably won't happen to you. And by sharing with you what happened to me, maybe it definitely won't happen, because a lot of these things that I'm beginning talking about today are just coincidental and will never happen again. Or there was potential scams and issues that I got myself into. By sharing them, you'll be able to avoid them. And, you know, you might have the exact opposite effect and experience than me. How many times do you speak to someone and you say, oh, where did you go? And then they say they went to somewhere, and then you immediately think, oh God, I hated that place. And then they tell you about how much they loved it. And I find this happening all the time when I travel these days. I might go somewhere and have a terrible time, and someone else might have a fantastic time. And here comes my breakfast. Thank you very much. We're having smoked salmon and cream cheese bagels. Lovely jubbly. And, you know, even just yesterday, I met up with a subscriber in the coffee shop, and he told me about his experience in Halong Bay. Now, in Halong Bay, I had an amazing experience, and they watched the video, booked a similar priced tour, and had the worst time because their boat was just full of really loud, obnoxious travelers and tourists who were on a big group trip, and they got drunk and they played loud music and they ruined the whole vibe of the Halong Bay experience. And they complained to the staff, and the staff didn't do anything because they were spending a fortune behind the bar. And so that's just another example of how I could have a really great time, you could have a terrible time, or, as I explained, some of the negatives that happened in the Philippines, it doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. I'm just sharing my experience, that's all. And I think some of these stories are quite funny, some of them are just interesting, so that's my disclaimer. Okay, let me go back to the chat now that I've finished that nice little intro and say hello. Marietta, that's too kind. Thank you very much for that. And no message attached. Just here's $50. Bye. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Let me see if I can pick someone else's. So someone says, Mr. Uled says, it's a shame your Vietnam trip went a bit south. It doesn't require a bit of preparation. Yeah, my Vietnam series did go a bit south, but that was more my energy levels and the fact that I went in the wrong direction. The further south I went in Vietnam, the less epic it got. And as a filmmaker, I was getting worse and worse footage, and so I was getting frustrated. But we're going to keep on the topic of the Philippines today. So any questions about the Philippines, I'm gonna keep out. I know it's early. Some people are saying it's a bit early, and it's on a, what day is it today? Is it Saturday? No, it's not Saturday today. What day is today? I'm all over the place at the minute. It's a Thursday. So I know everybody in the UK is fast asleep, but I can't do a live stream in the evenings just because I'm busy. I actually have to go to the dentist later. So yeah. Tina says, that's what I like about Paddy. It's I see honesty. It's not just all amazing all the time. And I appreciate your honesty. Yeah, look, Tina, I actually tried my best. This is quite funny. So I tried my best to be positive no matter what when it came to the Philippines and save everything for this debrief. But it's funny, like in the comment section, I've had people leaving comments saying, that's it, I'm unsubscribing, I'm sick of Paddy bashing the Philippines. And I'm thinking to myself, you just watched a 30-minute video of me being super complimentary. I cut out all of the bad stuff. Like, what are you talking about? And then I have other people saying, oh, this guy is just super positive and he's just trying to get clout and he's just trying to suck up to the Filipinos and all this. And I'm like, okay, so this is just the bipolar nature of the comment section on YouTube sometimes. Some people just take something that you say and take it out of context and think something. And so it's quite frustrating. So all I can do is just share my experience and open up a little bit of a dialogue and kind of just speak out loud, speak what I'm thinking. I get a little bit of flack from that. Certain people think that I should think before I speak and do more research and things like that. But I'm just traveling. I'm just out there, just like you would be, walking around, driving around, looking at things, going into places, and just exploring. And I share my explorations, and they're not perfect. And I'm not certainly super knowledgeable about the places I go to sometimes. I do a little bit of research from time to time. But that's what you get here at the Paddy Doyle YouTube channel. It's just me, and it's not enough for some people, but never, I don't mind. That's fine. It's enough for me at the minute. I'm just gonna take a little bite of my breakfast and read a couple of comments before we move on to Manila. Let me get a tissue. Thank you, Hein. I hope I said that right, Hein. So let's go over a little bit more about what's coming up in the live stream today. We're going to be talking about each of the places I went to. So Manila, Boracay, Cebu, Mindanao, Palawan, Coron. Then we're going to do a comparison between Thailand and the Philippines, and I'll be giving them a score. And throughout, I'll be just taking questions and sharing things that randomly people ask. And all I'm going to ask is that you keep it either about the channel or about the Philippines. And then I'll address them as I see things coming through. Dion, I think you're a positive person. I try to be, thank you. You tend to find a positive spin when things don't go quite to plan. Yeah, I do have that ability to have, like, I don't necessarily like shut down when bad things happen. I think a good example was in Laos, when I woke up one day and I just had a bad feeling, and then I went for breakfast and I had a terrible breakfast experience, and everything was telling me just to not go out and explore, and everything was telling me that there was a bad energy about that day. And that was the day that I pushed on, didn't make it to the ancient historical airfield, and in the end lost my wallet and broke my bike all in one day. So there are times where I just feel the energy is off. So I've definitely learned from that. So I won't be trying to force things anymore. I used to just go out and just make sure that I was filming every day, no matter what. Gary Butler, what's up, Gary? He says, how good was Jollibee? Well, we'll talk about Jollibee in this video because it was a big staple of my diet, actually, sadly. 1 second. Jollibee is the best. Okay, we'll get onto that. Okay, so let's just begin. Let's begin with Manila. So when I arrived in Manila, I was really, really excited because I wanted to be able to create just one video. I was going to try and make one good video every place I went. And so I had done some research, and the place that I was most excited about was the old Spanish Quarter, and then I was also going to go to visit the BGC. So I was going to have the old and the modern, and then my video would be varied. And I was really looking forward to getting to Manila, and I was really looking forward to the Philippines. I'd heard quite a lot of bad things. A lot of people say, skip Manila, skip Manila. And I was like, no, it's the capital. And for content, I knew it would be important to arrive in Manila and make a piece of content about the capital and share my experiences. And I did a lot of research. I went to the cathedrals, I went to the forts, I walked around the old streets, I went to the modern area, and I was super excited to get to Manila. But I got to tell you about the immigration arrival experience. I didn't film my flight. I never really filmed flying too much. Actually, I made like a leaving Thailand video. And when I arrived, I just kind of skipped to the part where I was outside the airport. But immigration was traumatic. It was really, really kind of something else. I've never really experienced anything like this. So I got out of the plane and we walked down the corridor to the immigration area. And it was just a sea of people. There was people everywhere, and they were all kind of funneling into this one little area where there was like 3 or 4 women who were checking QR codes, and you were supposed to have done a QR code thing that I didn't know about. So a lot of people were standing around trying to figure out how to do that, because a lot of people like me didn't know you needed anything, because online you didn't need any information or anything. It was just fully open. But sure enough, when we arrived, there was this big bottleneck, and it created this huge mess. People were shouting and people were arguing and everyone was stressed out. And once we got beyond that, I joined the longest snake of people, like this huge queue, and everybody had wide eyes and everyone was stressed, and the people in front of me were crying and they were really upset. And it was a British woman and her boyfriend, and the boyfriend was kind of staying calm, but she was in hysterics and she was crying and everything, and I couldn't kind of figure out what was going on. And then she said, she's like, we're gonna miss our flight. And the boyfriend just seemed quite defeated by the whole situation, and it was clear that they had arrived into Manila and were catching a connecting flight, but there was just such a long queue at immigration, and there was no staff anywhere to help us or direct us. And she was trying to get help and couldn't find anyone. And it was really kind of sad to know that they were going to miss their flight and there was nothing anyone could do. And she just took it upon herself. She's like, I'm going to go and ask someone again. And she just disappeared. Meanwhile, we were just kind of like in this big crazy mess, and there was arguments everywhere. And this was like my first impression of Manila. I was like, holy crap. And eventually 5 minutes later, she comes back and she's kind of like being reassured by an airport staff, and they had asked permission if they could cut the queue because they needed to catch their connecting flight, and someone had said yes. And then as they started going through, everyone else started saying, no, I'm gonna miss my flight, and then it all kicked off because they had been given special permission because, maybe they thought she pulled the tears, crying, the typical, and then crying makes you get to the front of the queue. But it was really, really interesting and traumatic experience for them. I was just kind of standing there like, I don't have to be anywhere. I just got to get outside and get my bag and then get a taxi to the town. But it was really, really, really a crazy immigration experience. really chaotic. And so if you are, my advice and takeaway from this is, if you are getting a connecting flight somewhere in Manila, like when I decided to catch my flight home, I was coming from Coron back to Manila, I made sure I had 5 hours between flights. You definitely don't want to be leaving yourself a short window, because if a few planes land, the way that the immigration building is designed is it's like a funnel, and so everyone will just kind of create this huge long queue, and it'll be a big mess, and it might take a few hours. So just be careful. Marcos, thank you for your question about how difficult is it to travel between the islands. We'll get onto all of this. Andrew says, we have the worst immigration. I think you must be Filipino. Actually, funny enough, the worst immigration I've ever seen was in Paris at Charles de Gaulle. It was a crazy, crazy mess. And they keep all the Americans over here, the Canadians over there, the British, the European line is like express, and then the rest of the world. And it's quite funny to see like English and American people be treated like, you've got the longest queue, you've got to wait the longest because of immigration, and the fact that we, especially the British, we left the EU. The French make it quite clear that we have our own slow lane, and it was quite funny. So I think actually the French immigration at Charles de Gaulle was worse. But yeah, just be okay. And Dion says, this is why I had to do my disclaimer. Dion says, I had little trouble and it took me 30 minutes. Exactly. You might have the exact opposite experience to me. I just got to share with you what happened so you can get a better picture of my trip. Apologies for eating breakfast. I'm so hungry, and the breakfast place didn't open until 8, so I didn't have time to get it in me before the live stream. It's great to see Thomas in Thailand here, and Connie. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for being a member for so long. So then, once I get outside of the airport, I walked to the taxi rank, and this was funny as well. So the taxi rank outside the airport, there were two, and I didn't know which one was which, so I just walked to the first one I saw, and this Filipino guy said to me, what are you doing? And I said, can I get a taxi? Can I get a number to join the queue? And he said, no, it's not safe. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, these taxis are not safe. You should go over there. And I was like, okay. It's a strange thing for like an official person to say, because there was an official queue with numbers and taxi ranks coming in, and for them to tell me that it wasn't safe. So I had to go to a different one and get a different taxi. And so what I learned later was that the white taxis in Manila, they aren't the safest. They're not regulated. Some people say that they're the taxi mafia. So your alternative, there is a special line at the airport, but once you're in Manila, there's Grab. And I was using Grab quite often, but it's very expensive, very, very expensive in comparison to, say, Bangkok. It was kind of crazy how expensive it was. Thank you, Samuel. That's very kind. And Arnsnell says, I'm currently in Coron. Any notable restaurants? I just went to the ones with the live music and the ones with the coldest beer. That's normally where I kind of end up. So then let's continue with Manila. So I arrived in my hotel and I booked this place. It looked nice and it looked very good location. And it was about, I want to say 30 or 40 US dollars a night. So pretty expensive. And we'll talk about hotels in the Philippines in general later, because in general, the hotels in the Philippines are quite expensive for what you get, to be fair. You don't get a lot for your money, and so you have to be spending around, what I learned is you have to be spending around 100 US dollars a night to get something clean and lots of comforts like clean towels or new fresh towels and shampoo and soap and everything in the bathroom. 2 pillows, a fridge, and an aircon and a window. That's $100. Whereas in other places you can get that for around $20-$30, even less. So for $40 in Manila, I was expecting something else. The pictures looked good, and when I walked in the room and I opened the door, there was 2 cockroaches that ran straight under my bed, and I was like, oh my god. And there was no fridge, so I couldn't go to 7-Eleven and buy a couple of beers and keep them cold, which is something I like to do. And then the water pressure was terrible. I was like dripping out of the shower head. The aircon unit was so loud. Like, it's these tiny little aircon squares, and it sounds like you're sleeping next to a laundromat. They're just so noisy, and this is throughout the Philippines. You very rarely get a normal roof set aircon. They're slammed into the side of the wall about head height, and they're tiny and they're so noisy. And so the room was dirty, there was cockroaches, and I was thinking, oh gosh, which was good in a way because it made me go outside and just be more in Manila, and I got more content because of it. But it wasn't a good experience, the hotel, and I did touch on that in the video. But the worst part was every morning at 6 o'clock on the dot, and the first day this happened, I thought there was an explosion or something. So my hotel was like outside of a courtyard, a big square courtyard with a park, quite a small park to be honest, and there was homeless people everywhere, like all around on every street. And I touched on this in the video. But I've never, thank you Juliet, that's very kind, thank you. I've never seen so much people sleeping on the streets before, except for when I was in LA, when I was in Los Angeles. And most people who were sleeping rough they weren't like threatening or scary. They were just, it looked like they kind of had jobs because they packed their stuff up and put their cardboard together and kept it neat and tidy, and then during the day they weren't there. So I feel like some people just sleep on the street and then they go to work. Anyway, that part there was a crazy amount of music, like so loud, and it was like drum and bass. And my room started shaking. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I ran to the window and I opened the curtain, and there was just like 25 people doing aerobics at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the music was ridiculous. Like, ridiculous. They could have turned it down 99% and they could still have heard the music. There was absolutely no need for it, right? And I went down into the reception and I said, what's going on outside? And they went, what? And I went, the loud, crazy music that's waking the whole hotel up, shaking the foundations of the city. And they said, oh yeah, they do aerobics every morning. And I was like, this loud? And they said, yeah. And I was like, I can't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. So I went back upstairs and I just stared out the window. I just thought, like, being out there, being that close to the speakers, their eardrums must have exploded years ago. Now they have no sense of noise. I'm not like a person to complain about noise, but this was ridiculous. And it was every day. So I think I stayed 3 nights in Manila. And so I have those earpods with the noise cancelling. And so at 6 o'clock in the morning, grab my earphones, put them in, press the noise cancelling, and I could still hear it, but it was like a slight and so I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning no matter what every single day. It was crazy. Robert, yes, actually I'm thinking about meeting up with the budgeteers this summer, so keep an eye out for that. Something exciting might be happening. Mark says that's insane. Yeah, but like I said, you know, your hotel might not be anywhere near noisy people, and your hotel might not have cockroaches, but I'm just sharing my experience. And so just be aware that for $30 or $40 US per night in Manila, that's what I got. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. And yeah, so just in general, just keep that in mind. Hotels are more expensive in the Philippines than any other country in Southeast Asia, bar Singapore, in my experience anyway. Adventures, foreign and domestic. Any plans to do some vlogging in Europe? Yes, I will be going to Europe in 11 days. So I'll be sharing all of my future travel plans in this podcast in a minute. But let's continue with some of our misadventures in Manila. I've got to say, by the way, I was really impressed with the old part of Manila. I thought it was really fascinating. My favorite thing about it was the atmosphere. The Filipinos in the old town just kind of live and hang out on the cobbled streets, and they sit there on their chairs and they drink their coffees and they drink their beers and they have all the street food. It was really, 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 really unique. And it was the part of Manila that I was looking forward to the most, because there's no Spanish colonial history anywhere else in Southeast Asia. You have a little bit of British colonialism in Singapore, Malaysia, and I'm sure there's quite a lot of Dutch stuff around Indonesia and stuff like that. But off the top of my head, I've never seen cathedrals and cobbled streets and real Spanish forts and architecture. Absolutely loved it. Thank you, Juliet. Thank you so much. That's very kind. So I was really, really vibing in Manila. It was just a few things about the taxi, the immigration, and the hotel. Also at nighttime, for the first time in Southeast Asia anyway, I didn't feel safe. There was a night when I was walking home, and it was only a 1.5 kilometer walk, but I looked at the street in front of me and it was just lined with people sleeping rough. And this time they didn't seem to be that friendly. I didn't trust myself walking down there with my camera and my wallet. I took a look, and some of it was lit and some of it was unlit, and I just thought, man, I don't feel safe. So I flagged down one of the white taxis because I didn't have the ability to get Grab, and I had to wait 3 taxis before one finally decided to take me just a kilometer up the road. So that was interesting. I know a lot of people talk about, is it safe to travel as a woman? Is it safe to travel as a man? And as a man, I've always told people, like, in my experience, I've had no issues because, you know, partly because I'm a man. I think we have less dangers. But that was the first time I kind of realized what it must be like to be a solo female and have that feeling of not feeling safe because of the people around you and the situation you're in and having to get a taxi. And so it was the first time where I was like, oh, I wish someone was with me. Oh, I don't feel safe. What should I do? I'm gonna have to get a taxi. So that was quite interesting. So I just thought I'd share that with you, that at nighttime, in certain areas, I didn't feel very safe. And a friend of mine got pickpocketed in Manila as well. So just be careful. But you know, that can happen anywhere. But just sharing you the thriller in Manila, says Ad. Exactly. It was thrilling that night. Where did I stay in Manila? So I stayed right next to the park with the big monument. And do I have the exact name? One second. I don't want to share the hotel's name just because I don't want to blast people on the internet and get in trouble. So I'm just sort of sharing my general experience. But the general area I was in, if I'm just on Google Maps here, the general area, just so you know, and the area was great. It was just, I think my hotel was not great. The park was great. The old town was great. Just the area right next to my hotel was just really, really kind of dangerous. Rizal Park. So Rizal, Rizal Park. I was just to the east of the main entrance. And so I would use the park as my morning walk, and then I would walk west or northwest into the old city, and that's where Fort Santiago, the museums, and all of the cathedrals are, and I really loved that area of Manila. And one last thing about Manila, and this is going forward for the rest of the Philippines, the ATMs. I was having a real issue with ATMs because the limit for a foreign debit card, anyway, might be different for your bank, but for my bank, I could only get 10,000 pesos, which is about 180 US dollars. So that typically would last me 3 or 4 days, sometimes much less. And so I kept having to go to the ATM, and that means ATM fees, bank fees. And again, you can probably sort this out and get a better bank with all of that. But for me, in my situation, I had to pay $3 or $4 ATM fee, and then you have conversion and all this. So I was losing money every time I went to the ATM, which is fine because normally I'll go to an ATM and take $1,000 out, or take the biggest amount of money I can. But in Manila and in Vietnam, I was struggling to get more than $150 in cash. So my advice, and this is what I did not do because I didn't have any time before I went to Manila, is just take, guys, a bunch of cash with you, get it exchanged, go to like your best currency conversion place near where you live, and just this is what I do. I take about $1,000 worth of the foreign currency and just keep it in my bag, keep it safe, keep it hidden, because I would rather take more money than I need than having to use the ATMs and having to do bank charges and things like that over and over again. Walkabout Wayne. Newcastle looking good for the Champions League. How are the tune? Yes. If you have no idea what I just said, we were talking about football and my team doing really, really well. And yes, Blue 2X, Rizal Park, that's it. Luck says there are pickpockets everywhere, thousands in Paris. It's not just Manila. Yes, of course. There's pickpockets everywhere. Just sharing some information with everyone who's here. Dion says, I always take $500 to $1,000 with me just in case. Yes, I do that too. I'll normally have $500 in cash hidden away at any time, just for emergencies. You never know when you need to get yourself out of a situation. Maybe you snap your ankle and you need a helicopter. Maybe you get your ATM stolen and you need to buy a train ticket home. Gordon, thank you. He says, was kind of disappointed there was no gas pump disco. Yeah, love the series, sorry, but I had to fast forward past the rock star bits. Yeah, the rock star bits. Yeah, the singing, let's talk about the singing. So the singing wasn't for everybody, but it was for me, and that's the main thing. So before I went to, is that a fake Paddy Doyle in the chat? Sorry, I just saw Paddy Doyle and someone's removed the message. Maybe it's another Paddy Doyle. If so, hello. Yeah, so the singing thing. So about a month before I went to the Philippines, I was talking to my friend Nick, and we were talking about things that we wanted to do in 2023 with YouTube. And he's a big YouTuber and lives in Chiang Mai. And we were talking, and I said, you know, I've always wanted to do a musical. The nearest I came was with the series I made on the Budgeteers called The Bike Trip, which was about 10 people driving around the mountains of Thailand. And I did all copyrighted music. I decided to make no ad revenue and just use 80s ballads and real great nostalgic music. That was the nearest I got to having a musical. But I always wanted to figure out a way, because when I'm making vlogs and I'm getting music from Epidemic Sound or wherever, I always think, imagine if I could just have my own music. And I had approached this guy in Australia called Zach, who's a friend of mine. And about a year ago, I had another idea for a musical series, and I asked him for a quote, and he quoted me a price. And at the time, I was like, oh, I can't afford that. Maybe not. And then when I was having a chat with my friend Nick, he was telling me about his musical endeavors and how he started to implement music in his videos, and that he had a studio. And he invited me. He said, look, come round, we'll record all the lyrics professionally in my recording studio, and you should reach out to the guy. So I reached out back to Zach and I said, is that offer still on the table? And he said yes. And I said, let's do it. So I spent about 3 weeks with Zach back and forth on Instagram and WhatsApp, writing the lyrics, coming up with themes and kicks and bits, and he did all the musical elements to it. And Zach really went into it. He got lost in it, and he really took it on as a creative project. Now, obviously, I can't sing, obviously, okay? I'm not trying to be some singing travel vlogger. This is not something that's happening on the channel going forward. I just wanted to have some fun. I wanted to express myself. I wanted to live that dream of having a musical vlogging series, and I wanted to do something that I've always been too scared to do. If you remember at the beginning of the year, I said I wanted to test myself this year. I wanted to do things that scared me, and I've always been too scared to do it. And so I knew I was going to split the crowd a little bit because it's a bit weird and it's a bit cringy. I mean, it's positive and it's fun, but it's equally cringy and kind of and awful. So I decided that Zach could help me really make it as professional sounding as possible. So at least it wasn't going to be terrible music on top of terrible singing. But Zach did a great job putting everything together. And then it just gave me a creative outlet because, you know, to be honest, like travel vlogging at the minute is so uninspiring to me. Like there's very few people. There's a handful of people that I watch that give me something that I haven't seen before or share their trip in an interesting way. I'm always looking for people who are genuine and interesting and show me things that I'm actually interested in, or that make me go, oh, that's interesting, or that make me smile, or that provoke an emotion and make me think, positive or negative. And I just thought the singing would be great for that. And it would be Paddy Doyle. It would be Paddy Doyle, something that you weren't expecting, and yeah. You know, Jason says, your channel, do what you want. Yeah, exactly. And so the singing thing was for me, and I hope it put a smile on some of your faces. Twist and shout, come on, baby now. Sorry, that was Gerald in the comments singing the Beatles. Yeah, so I was really, really nervous. And so in Manila, the first day that I went filming the music video, I saw those girls and those kids, those teenagers doing the dancing, and they had a guy on a microphone, and I think they were practicing a TikTok. And I was like, they could be my backing dancers. So I went over and I told them about my channel, and I asked if they wanted to be in it, and they said yes. And we did a little dance routine. And so my first music video in the Manila episode, just, I think it came out really well. And then Boracay, we had sunsets in Boracay, and then, so I pre-wrote all of the songs before we went on to the Philippines location. So every song was written and produced and ready before I even went. So I had to pre-imagine what the video was going to be. So climbing Mount Apo, I knew I had to make it to the top. We made it to the top. Electric guitar solo on the highest point. All these things I imagine we put into the songs. Zach did a lot of stuff as well. Like I had an idea about an Avatar song. Like it's like the lyric was something like, feels like we're an avatar. Da-da-da. Right, and it was going to be for all of the turquoise crystal clear waters in El Nido. And then Zach came back with, oh, I think it should be like, I wish I was a fish. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting, we'll do that instead. So I was very open to Zach's ideas. I let him really take control with a lot of the lyrics, and it was great. And you know, I kept seeing the comments that everyone was like, please stop singing. And I was like, no, I've pre-wrote them, pre-made them, and they're going in. They're going in no matter what. And yeah. Moondust, I actually loved your music. They had 80s vibes. Yeah, so I was really inspired by the 80s vibe. Obviously, you don't know if you don't know, but if you do now, Dr. Disrespect, the gamer, the live streamer, he's my favorite YouTuber. And his theme, his aura is all about 80s retro. So I take a lot of inspiration from him, and I decided that because the Philippines is quite dated, it feels like you're in the 80s. With the technology and the overall design of the country, it's very 80s and it's very analog, and I love it. So I thought 80s music would go great, and obviously the Filipino people love to sing. Karaoke is basically a national sport. I thought this is the time. So that's what happened. That's the kind of behind the scenes of the musical thing. Yeah, I love Dr. D. Oh, thank you, Luna's Room Podcast. That's kind. Gerald, the day you were singing in the tuk-tuk in Cambodia was the best ever. I was dying to be there. Yeah, thank you. I had a great day out, and that was a fun video. So let's go on to Boracay, and let's talk about Boracay Island itself. So Boracay, beautiful little island, but 3 or 4 years ago, it was defined or put in the news. It made headlines because it was voted the world's most beautiful beach, which arguably on a beautiful day with a few people around without the green algae would be arguably correct. Thanks, Stuck in Florida, sticking up for me. And it is undeniably beautiful. So, but what happened is, because it got promoted as the world's most beautiful beach, everybody started going there, and rightfully so. It is beautiful, but and there's too many people there. I arrived fresh from being in Manila. Fresh. I was still less than a week in the Philippines, so all of the new senses and smells were still really nice. And I saw masses of people. It was Valentine's Day. It was a bank holiday Sunday. It was a weekend. Everyone was on holiday. The Filipinos, the Koreans, the Chinese, the backpackers, the expats, everybody who was anybody was in Boracay that weekend. And it felt like a festival. It felt like full moon. It felt like Easter. It felt like Christmas. Everyone was having a great time, and I loved Boracay. And so behind the scenes, when I arrived, I got my flight, I got my ferry, I got a taxi, I walked to my hotel, I checked in, and I ran down to the beach to catch sunset, because I knew I had my Sunsets in Boracay song, and look, I knew the sunset was going to be brilliant. So I filmed the music video the first hour I arrived. Sunsets in Boracay, and I was singing like, I don't want to leave, but the reality was I had just gotten there. And I put that song at the end of the video because, you know, good sunsets are not guaranteed. The next day, I got a good sunset, so I got some more shots. But then the final day, which was the day that I was planning that I should film, the leaving the island, terrible sunset, you know, grey over cloud, nothing to see. So I really had to make sure that I got the shot. So that's why I filmed it the first day. And yeah, Dennis says, I enjoyed the series. It reminded me of my own travels there. I think that's another aspect of travel vlogs, is when you do watch someone else's experience, you kind of go, oh, I remember that place. Oh, that building's still there. Oh, that restaurant, you went to the same restaurant as me. You do kind of get that. Mark says, I love your drone footage. It's breathtaking, but I can tell from the moments sometimes you feel lonely. Yeah, but that's life, isn't it? You know, especially as a solo traveler, you get somewhere, you have a great time, and then a couple of days later, you start to get lonely. I do suffer from loneliness more so now because I have a girlfriend. I used to be kind of used to being alone, and it didn't really bother me. But eventually I started realizing I didn't have any friends, and now that I have friends and a girlfriend, I do get a little bit more lonely, a little bit quicker. Maybe it's just I'm getting older now, and I'm getting more sensitive. So with the rest of Boracay, there's a funny situation that happens in the airport. So the planes will land on the island next to Boracay, and you just take a quick ferry across, and it's all really well organized except for the baggage claim. This is so funny. So the planes land, you get off the plane, you walk down the runway, you go into the terminal building, and you wait for your bag, right? But the bags get driven in by this like golf cart dragging the luggage compartment boxes, and like 3 planes landed together, and there was 3 planes worth of people all standing around, and then this golf cart came around dragging all these big cartons of backpacks and bags, and then 2 guys get out and they pick up a bag like this, and they look at it, and then they put it on the bench. There's no conveyor belt. And then they turn around and they pick another bag out, and they look at it, and they put it on the bench, and then someone kind of goes, oh, that's my bag, and you're thinking, wow, we're going to be here for a long time if this is how fast they work. Super slowly, 1 bag at a time, just putting it onto a bench, no revolving thing, 3 planes worth of people, 3 planes of bags, and I just got my phone out and I was just like watching the news or the football highlights, I was there for 45 minutes. And then eventually my bag got put down and I went and picked it up, and then I organized the rest of my trip. And then there was another issue with Boracay, and that is on the way when I was leaving Boracay. So I got a taxi to the ferry terminal, and as I got out of the little tricycle thing, this Filipino dude came up to me, and he had a little lanyard thing with looks like a press pass, like some kind of accreditation, and he said, "Do you need a taxi, sir? Do you need a ferry, sir?" And I said, yeah, I'm going to the airport. How much? And he said, 600 pesos. Now, coming the other way from the airport to Boracay, I paid 1,000 for a minivan, and then the ferry, and then a minivan to my hotel. And so when he said 600, I thought, okay, that's cheaper. Seems about right. So I followed him, and the terminal building was to the left, and we went to the right, and we went underneath this kind of like rain corridor thing, like a corridor with a roof so people could stand there if it was raining. And he said, wait here. And he said, what's your name? And he wrote it down on a piece of paper. And at this point I'm thinking, this is sketchy. This doesn't seem right. Why have I been whisked over here to the right, far away from where everyone else is going to the left? And so he's like, took my name, a couple of other things, and then he just said, wait here, and then he walked off. So I stood there for like 30 seconds, and I thought to myself, this isn't right. This has got to be a scam. So I followed him, and all he had done is gone around the corner, then crossed the street and gone around the car so I couldn't see, and gone into the terminal building itself to buy a ticket. So I followed him in, and there he is at the front of the desk buying a ticket, and it says ferry 150 pesos. So he was preying on hungover, tired, lazy backpackers like me who just wanted someone to help them, and then say that it was 600 pesos, quickly run and get a ticket for 150, and then give me the ticket, which I could have just done myself, right? So just be careful. So in the terminal building, I said, excuse me, why are you charging me 600 if it's 150 here? And he goes, yeah, sorry, sir. And he just bailed, right? Luckily, I didn't give him the money. I was going to pay him when he gave me the ticket, but I had caught him out and he'd run off. And the girls behind the desk all started laughing, like giggling. And I was like, you think that's funny? Like, you have a scammer outside scamming people, or trying to. And there was a policeman standing there checking people's tickets. And I said, oh, that guy is outside, like, trying to scam tourists. And he just laughed. And I said, oh, it's funny, is it? And he went, and he just kind of like just wanted me to go through and just leave. And I just thought that was interesting to share, like, Boracay, the ferry terminal, super popular, very, very busy, lots of foot traffic, lots of tourists, potentially being scammed on a daily basis without them knowing. And nobody in the terminal building seemed to care. So just be aware of that. Oh, thanks, Nikki. If you're shooting off, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Thanks for being a mod. And yeah, get yourself some sleep. So let's move on to Cebu. And this happened in Cebu, and it happened again in Mindanao. So I'll just talk about it now, and that's renting a motorcycle in the Philippines. It's a lot of faff, and it's quite stressful. So there are websites you can find. Google search Cebu motorcycle rental, and I found this company and it had really bad reviews. So I tried another company, really bad reviews, and eventually I found one that had okay reviews, and I booked it, and he said, I'll be there at 10 a.m, which is great. And he turns up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I already had to check out. So I was standing around in the heat waiting for this guy, and he turns up with a dirty bike covered in mud, a proper dodgy bloke. He was from Belarus. He was like a gangster, and it was really, really weird. And he drove me to the ATM, and he didn't give me a helmet. And then when he gave me his helmet, it was broken. And he told me, he's like, okay, so It's got a full gas of tank, so make sure you bring it back with a full tank of gas. And if the police stop you, don't mention me. Just say that you borrowed this from a friend. And good luck, have a good time. And I was like, this is so not legit. And this was a good motorcycle rental. It had decent reviews. And the same thing happened to me in Mindanao when I rented a motorcycle. Found a company with terrible reviews, another one terrible reviews, found one that had good reviews, ordered a bike. They delivered it 2 hours late. When it did arrive, I took it for a test drive around the car park, and both brakes were not working. Like, I was pulling both brakes and there was nothing. Like, I had to put my feet down. So I told them, and they said, no, it's fine. I said, no, it's death trap. And I had to call someone, and then they had to communicate in the dialect in that island. And then they said, okay, we're going to get you a new one. And they were like kind of annoyed at me. And then an hour later, another bike came, and it was smaller, and it wasn't the bike I ordered. And it was a crappy bike, but it had brakes. So I just went on my road trip. So renting a motorcycle, in my experience in Cebu and Mindanao, was really not professional, not very safe, but necessary if you want to have a solo adventure. So I kind of sucked it up. And Cebu in general, guys, I think even though swimming with the sardines was fun and climbing up the viewpoints was stunning, I don't recommend Cebu at all. The city was it was poorly designed, traffic, pollution. I didn't have a good meal anywhere, and the roads were destroyed, and so much traffic. There's like one road that loops around the whole island, and there's like big ports, so there's lots of cargo trucks, and there's lots of infrastructure, and there's smoke from factories billowing up in the sky, and the whole city is really run down. And then when I went over to Molbol got battered by the storm, the cyclone, a few years ago. So that's a building site. It's turned upside down. The streets, the shops, the restaurants, the general feeling that I got in Cebu was not the best. So if you're on the fence about Cebu, I wouldn't recommend it. I think, as I'll talk about later, in my experience anyway, I liked Manila. I had a good time in Boracay, even though it was super busy. But Cebu was I wasn't really impressed, to be honest, with that entire island. And this is something that I wanted to talk about. Basically, as I traveled around the Philippines, I started to realize why it's called the Philippines, because it's a collection of big islands, obviously some tiny, some huge, and together they have the collective term of the Philippines, but they're really not. There's no collective feeling. As you go around island to island, you realize that each island has its own mini culture, sometimes dialect, certainly infrastructure. Some islands seem to have access to a lot more government funding and have better roads and have train system, or they have tarmac on the roads, signposts, lights, general good infrastructure. Like in Palawan, it was fantastic. Coron, decent. But in Cebu, I mean, have you ever played Sim City, right? And or like one of those like simulator games, and there's like a level where you're given like a failing city, and your challenge is, with this limited budget and this time, can you make the population happy again, and fix all the problems? Like Cebu really felt like I was just transported into a city that was like under attack. So I didn't really have a good feeling there. Just FYI, just wanted to share that with you. And it's quite a popular place. but there was very few positives from my time there, to be honest. And then after that, we moved to Mindanao and General Santos and the city of Davao to do the Mount Apo climb. And this is where I had a bit of an error. I wanted to give myself 7 days in Mindanao, a couple of days to explore Davao, a couple of days to do a road trip, that's 5 days, and then climb the mountain, that was 2 days. But it really, I just found myself waiting around. I didn't really like Davao. General Santos I didn't like, really. I mean, there was things to see and do, but there was nothing to eat in these cities other than like fast food, processed junk food. And this is something I realized in the Philippines, and we should talk about this now, is the food. Now, it doesn't have a good reputation, the food in the Philippines. And I have a lot of content creator friends, YouTubers, whatever, who have gone to the Philippines and just told me flat out, like, the food isn't good, and we didn't talk about the food, and we didn't show the food, and we just ate KFC every day. And I was like, oh, okay. And when I got there, I understand. There were certain areas, like there are restaurants in the touristy areas of El Nido, Coron, and places like that, Boracay. You can get Italian, you can get curry, you can get all food from around the world. And but when you're backpacking around the Philippines and you're getting off the beaten track or whatever, and you're looking for Filipino food, like street food or restaurants, it's very hard to find anything that looks safe to eat and good quality. And so what you do is you look around and you go, oh, I don't like the look of that, that doesn't look good, what the heck is that? That looks like it's been out all day. and what you end up doing is you look and you go, well, the only thing I can trust is McDonald's, KFC, Jollibee. And so because I did Cebu and Mindanao back to back, I found myself for 2 weeks straight eating junk food. Like, I was having McDonald's breakfast, sausage and egg muffin, then I was having some kind of fried chicken at lunch, and then some kind of fried chicken at dinner every day. And you walk around the streets of Davao and other areas and the big cities, and it's everywhere. It's junk food everywhere. And I think the sad thing is, I think in Filipino culture, junk food is part of the culture. Like Jollibee and McDonald's and Burger King and all these restaurant chains, they're full. There's so many people in there all day, and it's got aircon, and they have security guards. I think Filipino people feel safe there. It's a good place to get foods, take the family. It's relatively cheap, but it's all processed junk. And for 2 weeks in Cebu and in Davao, General Santos, and back to Davao, even on the climb to Mount Apo, we got in the minivan and they said, we're going to buy everyone breakfast so you can have breakfast at the beginning of the trail. And we stopped off at Jollibee to get spaghetti. I was like, no, please no. Somewhat Sensi says, honestly, I don't really understand why you don't also mention all the negative points in your videos as a travel vlogger. I mean, that's why I watch these, to decide if I want to go. Because, like I said at the beginning, like I wanted, no matter what, to keep it positive for my Philippines content and save this stuff for the debrief. Because walking around filming and complaining triggers a lot of people in the comment section. Because traveling is such a crazy privilege, and I'm aware of that. And if I walk around complaining all the time, then, I mean, that's not very good content, it's not very likable. But I also know that I don't want to be fake and I want to be like, everything's perfect. So I touched on stuff as I travel around in the Philippines. Like I said at the beginning, some people thought I was bashing the Philippines the whole time. I wasn't. I was just pointing out issues, little bit at a time. But the food thing was really kind of getting to me, because as Mark Soller says, it was affecting my health. Junk food, if you have a Burger King, that's fine. If you have a McDonald's breakfast, no problem. But if you have it for 3 times a day for 2 weeks, my gut, my digestion, my energy levels, my constipation, my diarrhea was on a whole nother level. And at the time, I didn't have any access to any kind of nutrition. To be honest, I found a person selling fruit, and I was like, oh, fruit! And I got papaya and I got mango, and the fruit wasn't that great, but I was just so happy to have fruit. And yeah, I just wish I had something like, like a supplement or something at the time. I didn't take anything. You guys might know Athletic Greens. This is not a sponsorship thing, but I just want to mention that they sent me some stuff to try out, and it was after I got back from the Philippines, and I wish I had something like this when I was in the Philippines, because just starting your day with like a base level of high vitamins and minerals and all of the good stuff that's in something like this is just a game changer, especially when you go into the Philippines, guys, because like I said, it was stressing me out. And only after Mindanao, when I got to Palawan and El Nido and Coron, and I did the amazing Tao Expedition, that's where the good food was. And I had some of the best food in my life on that expedition and in Palawan. But Cebu, Mindanao, and other areas of the Philippines, I couldn't find anything. And I had Filipino people reaching out to me. I had other YouTubers reaching out to me who live in the Philippines, recommending me food. And so I would go out and I would bring my camera and film a little bit. And I was just like, oh, nah, man, that was really bad. I couldn't finish it. I didn't like it. Try something else, try something else, try something else. Just couldn't find any kind of anything yummy, really, for a long time. And I can only compare this to other countries that I've traveled to. If you ask me, like, Paddy, what country has the best food for a trip like me, like where I'm traveling around, exploring on a motorbike or something, you cannot beat Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankan cuisine and the way that the food is there's buffets everywhere, and you go in, you pay a tiny little bit of money, you get a plate, and you can put on whatever you want, and it's all vegetarian, it's all delicious, it's all fresh, delicious food. You can't beat Sri Lanka. Second place would be Thailand, because you've got Thai food everywhere. And the Philippines was kind of just like stressing me out, because I wasn't getting any nutrition. Top travels. If you had 1 week in the Philippines, where would you go? Well, from everywhere that I've been, I would fly to El Nido. I would spend 3 nights in El Nido, and then I would do a 3-night cruise over to Coron, have 1 night in Coron or 1 day in Coron, do the tour, and then fly back to Manila and get out. If you had a 1-week trip, go there. I haven't been to Siargao, and I haven't been to a million other places, and I know they're amazing. But for me, from my experience, if I had a week, land in Manila, go straight to El Nido, do El Nido, go on an expedition to Coron, and then 1 day in Coron the next day, and then fly out. Or go to Coron and go to El Nido and go home from there. Palawan, beautiful island, and great things. Rom says, you are the only vlogger that said negative about the Philippines. Well, welcome to the Paddy Doyle YouTube channel. I kept it positive, and I'm throwing in a lot of positive stuff as well, but I'm just sharing with my audience my truth, and there you go. Welcome to the real world. I wanted to share you, actually, talking about nice stories, I wanted to share something with you. There was a day that I was feeling really down. I was in General Santos in Mindanao, and I was 10 days into this fast food, junk food only diet, because that was the only thing I could find to eat. I was missing home, I was missing my girlfriend, I was missing nutrition, and I was kind of feeling like I wanted to leave the Philippines early, but I knew I couldn't, because I'd made all my songs and I had all these plans, and I knew I was just stuck in a rut. And I went for a walk. Now, every day when I'm traveling, or as much as possible, I go for a run or a long walk. I listen to my radio station or YouTube podcasts or something, or my book, my audio book, and I just go for a 1 or 2 hour walk, and it de-stresses me, and it makes me see other parts of the place I'm at, and it just gives me a great feeling. And every time I went for a walk in Davao and in Cebu and in General Santos, I had to just turn around and walk home. Noisy, nowhere to stand, no pavements, stressful situations. I would go to a park, there would be no parks. I was like, where are the parks? I'd be on Google Maps. Why do these cities not have parks? Where are the parks? And I couldn't find any green space or anything. I had been disconnected from nature for so long. And there was this girl, a little girl, and she was cycling down the street and on this crappy little bike and this slum street area. And I was walking around thinking, oh, I just want to go, I don't like this anymore. And the girl just kind of like parked her bicycle in front of me, and she looked up and she just smiled and she high-fived me and she cycled away. And I was like, wow, that was such a beautiful little moment that snapped me right out of that rut that I was in. Made me remember the beauty of youth and how a smile can just make someone's day. And I turned to look and she was gone. It was almost like she was a ghost. But she really snapped me out of that rut. And I remember that one girl and that one, I mean, she was probably like 5 years old, but that one little smile just reinvigorated my entire trip. So it's amazing, the power of a smile. So if you are on the road, guys, and you see someone, just give them a cheeky smile. You never know, you might make someone's day and you might make someone's trip. And I did have this other video that went completely south. I rented a motorbike in Mindanao, like I talked about earlier, and I wanted to go on a road trip for 3 days. And I had so many amazing places to go check out. I was really excited to share more of Mindanao. It's kind of a unknown island to tourists because it's known to be dangerous and all of this, and it's rubbish. It's not dangerous, in my experience, obviously. Didn't feel unsafe at all. And I was excited to get on the roads and drive around. But I just had a nightmare. The bike, the roads, there was no service. So I had a SIM, right? No, I didn't have a SIM, but I was using, you download a map, right? And then it loads when you're out and about, and it wasn't working. Real stressful situation. I couldn't find, there was no road signs, so I couldn't find my way. And there was, like I said before, there was nowhere to get food. I had to keep stopping at McDonald's or something to get food. And I sacked off the whole road trip and limped back into Davao and dropped off my motorbike 2 days early and sat in a hotel room catching up on editing and just kind of being miserable. So there was some downtimes for me in the Philippines. I wanted to go on a big road trip and it just fell apart. And you guys know I can road trip in uncomfortable situations. I don't need a good bike, I don't need a good road, but there was something about that area of southern Mindanao that it was just impossible for me to have a good time. And I think I was in a bad headspace. And after that failed road trip and being low, that girl on the bike really snapped me out of it. So just wanted to share another thing that happened with you. Gordon says there's always good and bad with travel, and it's all about the experience and making sure there is more good than bad. Exactly. Loco, your stomach is the problem, not the food. If you eat Jollibee every day for 2 weeks, let me know how you go. And then Dan says, how's Singapore treating you? So Singapore videos are coming out this weekend, Sunday and next Friday. And maybe another video. I'm going to sit down and look at the other footage, but I had a bit of an issue. So we'll see if I get 3 videos out. Tina says, it's common for vloggers to get a lot of subscribers when in the Philippines. Did you? I got a little bit of a intake of Filipino audience as expected, but I tried my best to direct my content visually in terms of thumbnail titles and the way that it's presented to appeal to, and this is what I try to do everywhere I go, is appeal to foreigners who are looking to travel in these countries and looking to follow a fun adventure, follow a show of entertainment and useful information. I don't pander to the local audiences. my strategy with my channel is to build my core audience around American, British, European, Australian, Canadian, European foreigners who are looking to come to Asia or to anywhere basically in the future. So I could have really gone down that route, and it's really easy to do. You just title and thumbnails your videos in a certain way, and you know, foreigner this and da 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 da. There's lots of tactics that you can use, but there's a whole subculture in the Philippines called Pino Bating, which is a really interesting topic. But basically and a lot of foreigners don't even know they're doing this, but if you look into it, some of them do. And the Filipinos have a very delicate outlook of themselves in the world that they're in, and they compare themselves to Southeast Asian countries, and they're looking for validation. And there's a lot of history and reasons behind this, and they look for foreigners enjoying themselves in the Philippines to get satisfaction, gratification, and many other things. And so by being amazed at everything and showing how great everything is in the Philippines as a foreigner with your title and your thumbnail, you bait in this Filipino audience. They love it, they love to watch it, they love to smile, they see the validation, and they subscribe and they like and they watch and they watch and they watch, and you blow up in the Philippines. And then when you leave, that huge audience you've gained less interested in you because you're not in the Philippines anymore. So I was very, very careful not to fall for that trick. And so that's why I didn't want to go to the Philippines for so long anyway, because I didn't see a way of going to the Philippines without doing that. But in the end, I realized I was just true to myself, had my own trip and shared my own truth, and did the singing and kept it different and kept it unique. That of course Filipinos would be like, oh, this guy's cool, I'll subscribe to him. But in general, my audience went up in countries like the US and Europe, which is good. That's kind of what I was hoping to do. Because look, it would be, if you want to get 1 million subscribers as a travel vlogger, then you go on this tour. And technically I'm on the tour too, but I'm just kind of doing it in a different way, the way that I present myself, the content, titling, and the way I talk and the things I do. I'm targeting towards potential future travelers looking for information and entertainment rather than pandering to the local audience, because you can go on this tour, South Asia, Southeast Asia, go over to South America, all these countries that I'll be going to during my career. But you pander more towards the locals and play the part of the dumb foreigner walking around with a camera, trying things for the first time, interacting with locals everywhere you go. And the local audiences really, really respond to that. They love to see foreigners in their own country, and then they watch and subscribe en masse. There is that tactic, there is that strategy for growth on YouTube. But for me, growth's not about numbers and blowing up and whatever. It's about getting a community of subscribers that are just looking for entertainment and looking for useful information, and that will follow your journey no matter where you go. And it's better for business long term. And YouTube is a marathon, not a sprint, so I'm not in any rush. There people will be flying past me, you know, there'll be people on 1 million when I'm on 200k, and that's fine. I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered. Not much, just a little bit. A few people are heading to bed. Good night, thanks for coming. Jeraine, continue being honest with your reviews. Don't worry about the naysayers. Better to be genuine than to be fake. I am a Filipino and I understand your negative experiences and happy for your great experiences. That's what I like to hear. I was warned by other YouTubers, don't talk shit about the Philippines because they'll turn on you. And I was like, well, here we are. I'm going to share my experiences in this podcast. Then we went to Palawan and Coron, and this is where I can't really talk anything bad because it was great, but I will talk on a couple of things that happened. The first thing I want to say is how much I loved El Nido. it is a touristy place. You know, I compare it to somewhere like Koh Samui or Phuket. You know, like it's super touristy, right? But I really liked it. The town of El Nido itself has a little village feel to it. There's a school in the middle, like a high school and a primary school, right in the middle of all of the craziness of the restaurants and the hostels and things. So you have like kids getting picked up from school, cycling home. There's a real community of Filipino people that have lived there and they haven't moved out. You know, but that's what I like about El Nido. They weren't told to move their schools and their homes out and away so that the tourism could flourish. The tourism has grown around this little village, which I really, really liked. And I had a really, really nice time. And when I got to El Nido, guys, I was thinking to myself, why didn't I come here earlier? Like, why did I linger in Coron? Sorry, why did I linger in Cebu and Mindanao? Why wasn't I more efficient and have more time here? But you know, you learn. And so if I do go back to the Philippines, or if I was going to do this Philippines trip again, I should say, then I would have spent 3 nights in Manila, 3 nights in Boracay as normal. I would have done 3 nights in Cebu, not a week. I would have done my Mount Apo climb, and that was it. And then I would have got out of Mindanao and then spent more time in Palawan, exploring more of Palawan and Coron, and I would have gone to Boracay. No, I would have gone to Siargao instead. Lots of things I would have done differently, for sure, but I had to go there and learn. And earlier on, someone asked a question about, you know, how was it traveling from island to island, and I had heard some bad things. I'd seen some travel vloggers that I like document their horrendous experiences with like flying internally, domestic flights being delayed, cancelled, things like that. And I think during the monsoon season, you're more likely to get delays because of storms and winds and things like that. But I went in February and March this year, and that the weather was perfect. And so all I can say is that I was really pleasantly surprised by how efficient it was getting from island to island. For example, from Davao, I caught a 1 hour flight to Cebu, changed flight, 1 hour flight or an hour and a half flight to Puerto Princesa. When I got to Puerto Princesa airport, I got straight off the plane. I went straight over to the information desk and I asked for a van to El Nido, and I got into a private car for the same price as a van because I shared with a couple that were behind me. She said, oh, there's a private car or a van. And I said, how much is the private car? And it worked out to be like 100 pesos more. And I turned around and I said, you guys want to do a private car? And they said, yes. And we got together and we talked and we got to stop at a toilet whenever we needed. We got lunch where we wanted. And the roads, the infrastructure in Palawan was like night and day compared to Mindanao and Cebu. Straight tarmac roads, perfectly maintained, and we could go like 90 kilometers, 100 kilometers an hour and not feel like we were in danger. And beautiful coastline, mountains everywhere. And even coming into land, into Puerto Princesa, you'll be like, wow, we are landing in paradise. So really, really, really happy with moving around in the Philippines. I never had delays, I never had issues. But again, that was just my experience. But the problem that I had, and I talked about this in the El Nido video itself, was my Tour C, the boat trip thing in El Nido. And I couldn't believe it. Yes, Andrew, I do remember that train from Bangkok to Yala. So we go down to the pier thing, right? So they say we're going to pick you up at 8:30, so get ready for 8. So I get ready for 8, and I'm standing in my hotel room downstairs having a coffee. 8:30, someone comes to pick me up, and we're on time. We get dropped off at this office, and the girls working in the office are laughing and making jokes, and everything's fine. They give me a snorkel, everything's fine. And then we get down to the pier at 9. And we get to the pier, and there's all the boats that are going out on these tours. There's 30, 40 of them, and they all have a few crew, and they're all making noises as they position themselves and get into position, and there are tourists waiting to get on. And there's people on a megaphone. But again, and I think this is just something to do with the Philippines, but everyone funnels down into one place. and there was this tiny little concrete pier with one tiny little gazebo roof thing, right? And there's one naval officer, like a guy in military uniform, who has to sign permission or sign off every captain's paperwork. And the paperwork has the names of everybody going on the tour, I think maybe where they come from and some information. And then they get they present that to the man, and then the man reads it and he signs it off. And once they have the paperwork signed, they are now allowed to go out and take you on the tour and stuff. So for some reason, they don't get this all organized the day before. They don't say, what's your name? And what's your passport number? And where are you from? And then get all the paperwork sorted out the day before so that you can just go down there and get on the boat and go have fun. No, you have to line up, and the tour guides are like in a queue, and they're all trying to hustle and bustle and get into the front. And the people who have to give permission, there's one person sat there reading like a stack of paperwork like this, 1 page at a time, slowly reading it, ticking things, writing things, signing things, and then like spending another minute like, where's that guy gone? Right, let me just put that at the back, get onto the next one. And there's people like, and everyone's in the blasting sun, and people are getting onto the boat because they're just freaking out, and then the boats aren't moving. And so I don't know if you've ever been on a wooden boat in the Philippines when it's not moving, but it gets hot. So we're there at like 9 o'clock, it gets to 10 o'clock, and we're still hanging around, and I'm like trying to find shade, and this Russian woman, and she's kicking off, and the Filipino people being really respectful and just sitting there sweating with their life jackets on. We then go on our boat, and we're thinking, okay, that was an hour of hell. It's 10 o'clock, we'll be leaving now. And we just don't leave. We're like the only boat not leaving, and everyone's gone. There's still about 3 other boats, and we're all kind of just sat there like, what's going on? And we're just waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And it transpires that we're waiting for someone who's late or something, right? And we're like, no, we were here on time. We've been here an hour waiting. If they're late, they're gone. They're not on the tour, we're leaving. And the Filipino leaders stay there, and they're like, no, we're gonna wait. And everyone's kicking off. And we decide to just go. So they turn the boat around and we start moving. And after about 10 seconds, someone shouts from the mainland, like, they're here. So we turn around, we go back to the port, we park up, and we're like, where are they? And they're not there, and they're not there. And we wait another half an hour, and everyone's sweating buckets. I've taken off my life jacket, and they're like, put your life jacket on. And I'm like, why? It's boiling hot. We're not even going anywhere. This is a joke. And everyone's going mad. And I'm just sat there like, oh God, I just want to get out of here. 10:45 we left, and we got the breeze. We got the trip underway. We were the last boat out. Absolute shit show. Absolute nightmare. Couldn't believe it. This is El Nido Tour C. You know, they go every day. And it wasn't organized. It was like, and this is the thing that I realized when I went to the Philippines, it felt like it was everybody's first day at work everywhere you went. Everyone seems a bit like confused about what their role is and what job they have to do. And nothing seems to be organized, right? And this is probably the charm of the Philippines, but it was just something that I couldn't get my head around. And everywhere I went, I was like, wow, this is hilarious. Like, just a little bit of planning could go so long and go so far, but it just feels like every day is the first day. Have you seen that movie 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler, where every day she wakes up and she doesn't remember what happened the day before? That's what it was like being in the Philippines with so many people working in the tourism sector. It was like the first day every day. Like, they were like, okay, what do I do? Where do I sign? What's this thing? Okay, where do they go next? And it just felt like it was everybody's first day. It's just quite funny, I thought. So that was my only bad experience in El Nido. And then otherwise I had a great time exploring. It's beautiful there, the beaches, the hotels, the food. El Nido gets a big thumbs up for me, but I will not be going on one of those tour A, tour B things again. You would, if I went back, I'd definitely be doing a private tour, get all the paperwork organized the night before, and just get out on the ocean and have a full day. Because the day was kind of ruined by that point, to be honest. Sabay, exactly, Teddy. Or mai pen rai, that's what we would say in Thailand. Never mind. Elia says, my comment on the unorganized nature of the Philippines, we call it organized chaos. You're not wrong. K. John, most of the tourists in the Philippines encounter difficulty in accessing food because there's no variety and end up going to expensive restaurants. Food in the Philippines has the most few varieties. Okay. Yeah, I found that. I found that to be true. John, relax. That boat story can be avoided if you go on a private tour, or don't get unlucky. For some reason, our boat was the unlucky one, I think. But I did get the feeling from the Filipinos on that boat trip that was kind of the normal way of life. Thank you, Mike and Ashley. Yeah, the Singapore videos are coming soon. And Gerald, I would have loved to have had a cold beer and just relaxed, but it was 10 o'clock in the morning and I was hungover, actually. So, let's quickly talk about the Tao experience. After El Nido, I went on that tour with the boat company, Tao Philippines, to Coron. I got a lot of people saying that was a sponsored thing and that was all positive. It wasn't. I paid the full price. Keezy1, what's up? He just wants to share a story. He said, when I was in the Philippines, I had a ticket for a ferry and I was directed to the wrong ferry by the staff, and then they accepted by the guy checking the tickets on the wrong ferry. So you just were pointed to the wrong ferry, got on the wrong ferry, and then someone said, yes, you are on the wrong ferry, get on board, welcome. Filipino time is 2 hours later than expected. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. I mean, look, most Southeast Asian countries are unorganized, but the Philippines seem to take it to a whole nother level. And Tina, yes, Miss P will be in the Singapore videos. You'll see her for the first time. Briefly, you know, like I'm not in her face, but she is in the content. You'll see her cute little face. So yeah, people thought that I was on this tour as a sponsored thing. It wasn't. And I even had a debrief like this section at the end of the video on episode 2 where I talked about the negatives. I was being nitpicky because I wanted to give people like some aspects of negative. Like the booking process was really unorganized. They kind of didn't confirm it till the day before, and that was kind of stressful. But otherwise, guys, I have to tell you that was by far the best thing I've done this year. Maybe in the last since the Haizhong loop, it was the best thing I've done, because I mean it was just paradise. It was like living in a postcard. It was like living in a dream. The food. Now we've just been talking about how terrible the food is in the Philippines for about 20 minutes, but the food on that trip, right? Best food I've had ever, probably, since I did the tuk-tuk thing in Sri Lanka, and since I've gone out and had lunch with Gary, because he knows all the best places in Bangkok. The food, the company, the Tao Philippines company, they have an ethos of no processed foods and everything is organic and everything is made fresh to order. So the chefs, who are incredible, right? They're just cooking all day. If they're not preparing breakfast at sunrise, then they're cooking and preparing lunch. If they're not cooking lunch, they're preparing dinner or snacks. They're just constantly in the kitchen, grating coconut, chopping vegetables, catching fish, making curries, prepping vegetables, frying potatoes, just doing something, and just, oh my God. And the reason I knew how good the food was, because not only did it taste great, but for the entire trip on the sea for 6 days. Normally when I'm at the ocean, on the ocean, or I'm at sea, salt water, sweat, and sun cream, I generally break out with terrible skin, and I get really bad acne, and I get like, yeah, I just look like a spotty teenager again. But because the food was so good, my skin was glowing, even though I got sunburn, obviously. But and my bowel movements became normal, let's say, because for the rest of the time in the Philippines, I had a bit of a deli belly situation, because I wasn't really getting any kind of nutrition. But that boat trip was incredible. Food was amazing. We didn't want to finish that boat trip. Like I remember, like day 3, day 4, we were like, wow, okay, it's snorkeling and beaches every day. You know, there's not much variety, and it was getting a little bit samey, even though it was beautiful. But when it came to the last day, in the last, we were sailing towards Coron. We could see Coron. We were all depressed. We didn't want to get off the boat. We didn't want to stop eating that food, to be honest. Yeah, Teddy, I'm glad you enjoyed hearing that. I love Sri Lankan food. I really remember it. And did I make any lasting connections on the boat? Yeah, I did. We have a WhatsApp group. I mean, we're not like super close, but yeah, I think the problem with the boat trip in terms of the group was half of the people were from Switzerland, and that kind of meant that like half of the group had a thing in common and they made friends more than others. But I was running around flying my drone, chilling out, drinking gin and tonics most of the time, to be honest. So yeah, the boat trip, guys. I would go to the Philippines again just to go on another one of those trips. Next time, I would love to go with my girlfriend or on a honeymoon or something like that, because it's really romantic and kind of crazily over the top beautiful. And when you're on your own, you might feel like a bit extra lonely. But I will tell you something quickly. In the WhatsApp group, I borrowed one of the Swiss guys' power bank to charge my drone, and he texted me when we got to Coron saying, "Oh, can you bring the power bank?" And I said, "Oh, I left it on the boat. I forgot to tell you. Sorry, my bad." So I had to go back to the boat the next day and get the power bank. Luckily, it was there in the office and it was fine. But the tour guides, the guys that they call them the Lost Boys, the local Filipino men who work on the boats and fix the engine and make all the food, they had a rest day, and then the next day they were going back to El Nido the same way that we had just come. And I said, "Oh, how's the next trip looking?" And they looked at me and they said, "It's 25 Americans." And they were all together, like a group. And so, can you imagine like how different the experience would be if you went as a solo traveler? Imagine if I had just gone on that boat and it was 25 Americans and they were all friends from home, and parties and friendship groups, and you would just be like a tag along, Whereas luckily only half of our boat was from one nation. They all didn't know each other. They're all professional people, different lines of work, different cities. None of them knew each other, but there was couples, all from Switzerland. And so, yeah, again, I could have that experience and you could have a different experience. So just be aware. No, I'm not getting married, Dion. Why did I choose Tao over the other companies? Because there was one particular day when I was sitting down to research and plan my Filipino trip, which I did in one day. Normally I dedicate one day every month to planning a trip. And so yesterday actually was it yesterday? I planned the whole of my next month, basically, booking flights, booking things and all the rest of it. And when I sat down to organize the Philippines, I don't even remember like how I found it, but I just remember going online and looking for things to do, and I think I found like top 10 things to do in El Nido, and one of them was sailing to Coron, and I searched and I found Tao Philippines, and I saw the boat, and the thing that sold me was the boat, the wooden boat with the sails, and I thought to myself, that's a great drone shot, that'll look beautiful. And then it was expensive, but I thought because the price was the most expensive, I thought it would be a guaranteed good experience, and I knew it was going to be the end of my series and the end of my time in the Philippines, and I wanted to end on a bang. So I was getting shit in the comments from people saying, "Oh, there's cheaper, better companies." Well, go research that then. Go on that company then. I just went on that one because I wanted to be on a fancy boat. And we had to switch boats after 3 days, which everybody was gutted about. But in the end, we didn't really care that much. Your honesty lets others have realistic expectations. Thank you. Well, that's the whole point, Kelly, is this debrief. Yes, I'm sharing some stuff that I didn't really like and bad stuff, negative stuff, but the debrief has to give you an overall picture, because to be fair, like in the Philippines, there were so many times when I was filming and I was like, okay, I'll just save this for the debrief, because maybe I was a bit over positive in the Philippines compared to normal. Even though some people thought I was bashing the Philippines the whole time, which is kind of crazy, but that's how some people take how things you say. Thomas in Thailand, thanks mate, go to bed, enjoy your night's rest. And this is the final thing before we do the Thailand versus Philippines, is Coron and my hostel experience. So I just turned 37, and you know, there's always, when I was in hostels as a backpacker, there was always one dude who was like late 30s, early 40s, hanging around the hostel, and everyone was like, why is he here? He's a bit old. Is he a bit of a weirdo? He's a bit of a creep. And even though I don't feel old, and I don't particularly look too old, I don't think, I'm definitely getting older in my mindset. So I wanted to book into a hostel. I wanted to be a backpacker, and I wanted to have something cheap, and I wanted to meet new people, and I was feeling sociable after the boat trip. So I booked into this hostel, and I found it on Booking or something, and it was called Hop Hostel. Beautiful hostel, looked really nice in the pictures. Checked in, beautiful place, gorgeous building, really good, comfortable beds. Actually, the people on the Tao Expedition recommended, so the Swiss people were staying there, Swiss. And to be fair, the bunk bed was great, the bed was soft, the pillow was great, it was nice and warm. They had the aircon on during the evening, so you didn't get too hot. They had plugs and lights, all the usual good stuff that good hostels have. And I was excited, and they had a great rooftop bar, and you could have the sunset, and it was happy hour, like really cheap beer, really good hostel. Loads of people knocking around, loads of things to do. They had like a quiz night, loads of stuff. It was great, but I'll never stay in another hostel, or not in a hostel like that, like one that's set up for parties, because I'm just tapping out. I'm tapping out of that lifestyle. I can't. The most important thing to me now as a traveler is sleep. That's the time that I'm guaranteed to be alone, to rest, to back up my footage, to put my shit all over the place. That's why I always get a private room in a hostel, or a private room in a hotel. And this hostel didn't have any private rooms available, or I don't know if they had any private rooms, but I decided to suck it up and go back into a dorm, and it was terrible. It was terrible. There was a guy on the other side of the room who had like, he was snoring like a demon had possessed him. It was ridiculously loud. Again, noise cancelling headphones did little to block the sound of this. And so also, because he was snoring all night, the earpods ran out of battery after about 3 hours. So at 3 a.m. I woke up to this racket, this demonic noise, and I could hear the couple, because they had bunk beds that were actually like connected so that couples could sleep next to each other. And there was this English couple on the raised upper bunks who were moving around and like whispering to each other. And I was thinking to myself, please let them be thinking and talking about who should go over and wake him up and tell him that he's being ridiculous, and that his snoring is out of control, and that he needs to first know that he's making that noise. Maybe he just needs to sleep on his other side. Maybe he needs to roll on his belly. Maybe he needs to just wake up a little bit, clear his throat, and then he'll be fine. Something like that. So they're there whispering and talking, and I'm waiting, and nothing happens. And I think that they're quite British and I'm British, so we're both kind of just thinking like, no, it's too rude to wake him up. I mean, it's natural. He doesn't know he's doing it. It would be rude to wake him up. But he is disturbing everyone. But then the other people are asleep, so maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I'm just a light sleeper. Maybe he'll stop in a minute. You know, typical like polite Britishness way of thinking. Then this girl just like storms in, like drunk, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? She's trying to be quiet. She's making a racket. She's like slamming stuff. She's dropping stuff. She's unzipping bags. crazy loud noise. She uses the toilet, and we're thinking she's gonna wake him up. She's drunk, she's American, she's gonna be like straight in this guy's face. She's gonna do the work for us. And she's like gets her like nightly routine done, drunk and whatever she needs to do. She just pierce, brush her teeth, whatever, right? She gets into bed and she just starts snoring. And so we've got like two people, one's snoring like a demon, the other girl's like just normally snoring away. And then I can hear the English couple and the girl goes, "That's it, I've had enough. And I'm like, yes, she's gonna get up and wake them up. And she gets up, out of bed, she goes to the door, she goes out the door and she just leaves. And I'm thinking, where's she gone? Maybe she's gone to reception and asked the reception to come and wake them up and tell them that they're snoring. She never came back. She just went downstairs into the cinema room and slept on a beanbag. And so I just stared up at the bunk bed before me like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. So I decided just to kind of like charge my earpods, and then after about half an hour, I knew I had about an hour's worth of charge. And then I just like put on a movie or something and stayed up, and I just couldn't bring myself to go over and wake him up or the girl. And then the next night, same thing happens again, but this time I make sure I've got my earpods charged fully, and I make sure that I've had 3 Long Island iced teas so that I can sleep through these guys snoring. And the next night, this other guy's checked in and he's just dumped all of his stuff next to my bed. Like, he's sleeping above me, and next to my bed he's just dumped all his stuff, and he's got his stinking shoes, like his dirty shoes that he's been backpacking in for months, right? Stinking, right next to my bed. So I'm like, disgusting, right? So I move his shoes under the bed so I don't have to smell them. The demonic snorer starts again. Then like a bunch of people coming in and out, slamming the door, making a noise, giggling, laughing, a little bit of arguing, snoring, demonic, smelly trainers coming back again. And I'm just lying there and I'm thinking to myself, never staying in a hostel ever again. Thanks, all that's gone. JF, never experienced a hostel or a dorm when traveling. Interesting to hear such experiences. Yeah. Sounds like the hostel from hell. Actually, the hostel was amazing. The hostel was amazing. That's why I just want to mention, like, I did mention them by name, Hop Hostel. The hostel was great. Fantastic. You couldn't have designed a better hostel. It was just the people I was sleeping in. And that young backpacker mindset of like, let's get drunk, let's snore, let's not care, you know. Luckily no one was shagging, you know, because that's happened before. Selfie stick adventures. Thanks for joining. Sorry if you've been leaving comments. I'm just glancing at the chat as much as I can. Oh, Marta, get some bed, get some sleep. Right, we're going to finish up our live stream with my Thailand versus Philippines score. So I've given Thailand a score and a Philippines a score, and we'll go through it together. I just need to say another disclaimer. Look, I've been all over Thailand, but I haven't been all over the Philippines. I've been in Thailand for many, many years, coming and going as a tourist, but the Philippines I've only ever been for 5 weeks. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. And I'm obviously Thailand biased, okay? But I've tried to be as fair as possible. And here we go. So the Thailand versus Philippines breakdown. We're going to be scoring on accommodations, travel days, like how easy is it to get around as a traveler, the food, the activities that are available to do in the country, the people, the natural beauty of the country, and the overall traveler experience. That can include things like culture, safety, and the general infrastructure of the country. So let's begin. Accommodation. So each one is out of 5, and I give Thailand 5 out of 5 for accommodation, because at high level budget, if you want to stay 5-star, there's so many great options with great buffet breakfasts, service is great, but mainly because at lower level budgets, at around $15 to $20 a night, you can get a great single room with a clean bed, 2 towels, 2 pillows, a fridge, aircon, hot water, water pressure, a key card, Wi-Fi, 5G, pretty much everywhere for $20 a night. And in the Philippines, I was really struggling. I could only recommend a couple of places that I stayed at. A lot of the places I didn't like, cockroaches, expensive, loud aircon. So I can only give the Philippines 2 out of 5 for accommodation, and that's just my truth, okay? That's just my experience. I did once bump up my budget to $150 a night when I really was getting annoyed at how bad the rooms were, and I still found it to be dated and not the best. And a lot of people I spoke to said, yeah, we were really shocked at how more expensive accommodations were in the Philippines compared to what you get. That's the most important thing to mention. For $30, you're not really going to get something decent in the Philippines, whereas in Cambodia, Laos, other areas, you can. You really need to be spending $100 plus on your accommodation to get your base level Western snobbery comforts like I'm used to now. You know, take that with my experience as a traveler as well. As I'm getting older, I do need more. I'm more basing my accommodations these days on cleanliness more than anything else. I'm starting to sound like an old man. Travel days. So how easy is it to get around? Buses, trains, flights. How easy is it to travel around Thailand versus the Philippines? Well, Thailand, I'm only going to give you 3 out of 5. I find the buses, the bus systems are a bit bad. The trains in Thailand, terrible. So old, rickety and noisy and slow. Ferries can be overcrowded, unorganized. Internal flights, not too bad, but airports aren't always in the best places, can be a bit expensive. The Philippines, I give 4 out of 5. The Philippines beats Thailand in terms of getting around. Getting around the Philippines, like I said earlier, was really easy. Flights, internal flights, there seemed to be, the travel days were stress-free for me. Whereas I've had some tricky travel days as a backpacker in the Philippines. In Thailand. So the Philippines, you win 4 out of 5. Thailand, you only get 3. What do you guys think so far? Do you agree? Yeah, I didn't do a Cambodia debrief. This is the first one, but I'll be doing a debrief from every big series going forward. You know, I've got like a few vlogs from Singapore, I've got a few vlogs from Korea, but there's no big debrief needed. But for big series going forward, I'm thinking about doing this. Keys One says, that's a fair point. Good Wi-Fi in the Philippines is a challenge, even in the hotels. Yeah, I couldn't even do basic stuff like streaming YouTube, watching YouTube in many not 5-star, but like I had a $150 a night room, and the Wi-Fi wasn't strong enough to stream my Newcastle game anywhere in the hotel. Solid Truth, okay, good. $32 Aussie airport hotel, bugs and loud open all night restaurants, interesting. Okay, you guys seem to think that was a reasonable statement. And someone says hotel taxes are killing the Filipino hotels. Is that right? Okay, that's interesting. Flora and No in the house. Lots of helicopters there. What are you talking about? You must be talking to someone about something else. So let's move on to food. Thailand versus the Philippines. It's not going to be good, is it? Thailand, I'll give you 4 out of 5 because I feel like the food in Thailand is generally really good everywhere you go. Except I find that like if you go somewhere really touristy, like PP, anywhere like super touristy, right? The food's crap. It's really hard to get good, authentic Thai food or good restaurant food in the touristy parts of Thailand. The Philippines, I gave you 1 out of 5. The one being my food on the trip, on the boat, the boat trip, the Tao 6-day sailing, which was some of the best food I've had. But I paid $750 for that trip, and that's and everywhere else I went, I didn't have I can't tell you of a meal I had that I remember. I just remember like trying Filipino dishes and going, no, another one, no, not having it. just then having 2 weeks of junk food, fast food, whatever I could find, and getting low nutrition, and then I had that flourish of great food on the boat trip. So that's my opinion. Activities. What is there to do in Thailand versus the Philippines? Well, I gave you guys the same score. Thailand 4, Philippines 4. I think there's lots to do in all of the country, no matter where you are. There was no shortage of fun things to do, and tours and waterfalls and mountains and boat trips and all sorts of things. So you won't really be looking for things to do. There'll be so many things to do in terms of just daily activities and things to keep you busy. Adventures, foreign and domestic, Thai food wins, but in the super touristy areas, the food in Thailand is a bit dodgy. Jason says, I find the touristy areas don't care too much about the food because they have a new crowd each week. That's so true. Someone might have a bad experience and then they're gone, so it doesn't matter. Some people are agreeing. The problem about Thailand is that there is too many tourists and it's much more crowded than in the Philippines. I haven't actually been anywhere super touristy in Thailand since this world has gone back to fully normal. I've heard Samui is absolutely rammed at the minute. So I'd be interested to go and kind of get a feeling for what it's like. Let's talk about the people. So the local people, and again, a tie, 4 out of 5 for Thailand and 4 out of 5 for the Philippines. One thing I do want to mention is a lot of people say that the Filipino people are the most friendly, but I don't agree. I think the Filipino people are friendly, but I also think that they speak English, and I think a lot of people confuse the fact that because they can speak English, it just means that they're more friendly. And don't get me wrong, like when I landed in Manila, it was so nice and fresh to just have conversations with the locals and ask them for directions, communicate with them, and have fun with them, and have banter with the taxi drivers and things like that. That was really nice. But I think Filipino and Thai people are really nice and friendly in equal measures. And when people say who are the most friendly people in the world, friendly people. It doesn't matter where they come from. Friendly people are the friendliest people in the world, and you can get miserable bastards and people who have bad intentions from anywhere. In Thailand, in Cambodia, in the Philippines, wherever, UK, America, friendly people are friendly. So I met unfriendly Thai people, I've met unfriendly Filipino people, I've met people who blatantly tried to scam me from any of Thailand and the Philippines. I've had bad experiences and great experiences, but I just wanted to let you know that Filipino people are nice, but there's a few bad eggs just like anywhere. So the only exception, I can't think of a bad thing that ever happened to me ever in Cambodia. Everyone in Cambodia seemed to be super ridiculously over the top nice, and not in a fake way, just genuine, we're so happy, life's good, we're making a living, we're working, and people in Cambodia, if you had to point a gun at me and say who's the most friendly people in the world, I would say just friendly people anywhere, but if you had to, I would pinpoint Cambodians as the most friendly. And the land of smiles in Thailand, not always the smiliest people, but in general, 4 out of 5, so high score. How do you guys agree? Oh God, Liza Jane, I'm scared. I've always went to Thailand and Bali. The food's amazing. I just booked my first trip to the Philippines, and I'm a foodie. So Lisa Jane, I can't sugarcoat it. And what I've said is my experience only. Just maybe you'll love the food there, hopefully. An honest review about the public transport, like tricycles and jeepneys. I never took a jeepney because they were too loud and polluting and uncomfortable looking. I went on a few tricycles. nothing that interesting really. Just getting from place to place. Not that interesting to be honest. It's more fun getting on a tuk-tuk, you know, but not too many tuk-tuks I saw. Food is crucial for tourists. That's why the number one issue, and why Thailand wins the hearts of tourists. Yeah, food. Look, you know, when it comes to relationships, they say the route to every man's heart is through his stomach. And as a traveler, the food is the most memorable thing. Like, you know, just coming back from Korea, the food we had in Korea, and I don't even like Korean food normally, but I just had such good food in Korea. It made the trip. And bad food can ruin a trip. Luckily, the Philippines makes up for it in so many other ways, but if the Philippines didn't have such natural beauty and nice local and friendly people and loads of things to do and a varied landscape, then it would be a terrible traveling experience. In my opinion, of course. The natural beauty, I gave Thailand and the Philippines an equal high score of 4 out of 5. Thailand and the Philippines gives you almost everything you need in terms of high mountain ranges, beautiful islands and beaches. The one thing that I would say is the reason why they're tied, I'm kind of thinking that why would I mark the Philippines down? Why did I give them 4 out of 5 and not 5 out of 5? For natural beauty. There must have been a reason. I can't think of a reason right now to mark the Philippines down, because the reefs, you've never seen anything like it. Bright blues, purples, yellows, the fish, the colourful vibrancy of the clarity of the ocean, the mountains, the jungle, the mossy forests, the white sands. The ugly parts of the Philippines are all of the man-made cities and dirty roads and pollution factories, and that's nothing to do with the natural beauty or environment. There's volcanoes. There's guys, can you think of anything to mark down the Philippines? I'm thinking about changing the score to Thailand 4, Philippines 5. Is there anything where we can mark the Philippines down in terms of its overall natural beauty? Pollution, yeah, but pollution's man-made. I'm talking about the natural beauty. What do you guys think? I'd love your input. With Thailand, the reason I marked it down or didn't give it a 5 is because even though there are certain areas of Thailand that has incredible beauty, I think the Philippines beat it. Yeah, a lot of you saying the Philippines is more paradise. I feel like it's a cliche, that white tropical sand, that turquoise water, but I mean, when I was on that boat trip from El Nido to Coron, I was speechless. There's good variety. Yeah, I'm gonna change that to a 5. I can't mark them down. So I'm gonna change that to the Philippines wins 5 out of 5. So I'm gonna improve their score by 1. If they hadn't have scored so low in food, they'd be doing a lot higher in this made-up fun comparison. And the final section, yeah, the Philippines is spectacular. Yeah, the final section is my overall experience, and so Thailand, I gave it a 4. Overall, it was amazing, and the Philippines, I gave it a 3. The thing that brought it down, the accommodations, expensive and poor quality, and the food, poor quality. And I don't want to eat junk food every day. McDonald's is not a diet. So overall, Thailand got 28 out of 35, and the Philippines got 23. So it was quite close. Only a low score in food and the hotel accommodation situation. Otherwise, the Philippines beat Thailand for traveling around and for its natural beauty, and then they tied on everything else. Obviously, this is just a stupid, meaningless comparison, but as someone who's been all over Thailand and spent a little bit of time in the Philippines, I thought you'd like to know that it's quite tight. You just need to know that you're going to have to spend a lot more money on hotels. You won't find that much good accommodation, and the food is a genuine issue, unfortunately. So that basically brings us to the end of the debrief. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you've been listening, I haven't eaten my breakfast because I thought it was going to be rude to be chewing. So let me just spend the next few minutes answering any of your questions. So if you have a question, I'm going to drink my coffee and stay here for an extra 10 minutes. So feel free to throw things at me, any feedback, any questions. And yeah, if you've been listening to the podcast or watching the repeat, I'll probably trim the ending now. So thanks for watching. And the next video will be coming from Singapore, and then South Korea, and then Bali, and then Europe. We've got lots of plans. Okay, and that's where I'll cut the end of the live stream later. So now you guys, we can just hang out a little bit for an extra. Wow, we've been going over 2 hours, and I haven't eaten. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. We'll just spend 10 minutes max because it's my girlfriend's day off, and we want to go out and do stuff. What happened to Nepal? Yeah, I cancelled Nepal. Unfortunately, luckily I didn't book my flights. They changed the rule. You now need to have a guide, and I wanted to go do Everest Base Camp alone, solo, like you could have done for the last 10,000 years. But they got this new law. Every hiker, every trekker must have a guide. You cannot go solo anymore, or you and a friend. You have to have a guide. They say it's to make it safer, because a few people died and a few people got lost. But I just think that's a silly decision. My girlfriend will be briefly in the videos in Singapore and in Korea. You will see her. She's not front and center, but she's there because we took a trip together, and she let me film it, and I asked if she didn't mind being in it a little bit, and we've watched the videos that I've made already, and she seems to like them, so we're going to upload them. Yes, like Dion, I will be going back to the Philippines, probably next year, and I'd like to go and do some of the things that I missed, and see more of the country and get more of a opinion and experience and perspective, because like I said, it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Moondust, is that the islands really north towards Taiwan? Because I've heard that they're very different to anywhere else in the Philippines. Oh, so Bali. So Bali, I actually leave tomorrow. I put a post on Instagram asking for people's unpopular travel opinions. Unpopular being the key word, right? So what opinions do you have that a lot of other travelers don't agree with? And I said one of mine was that Bali is shit and overrated and overrun and not a fun place to go. And I wouldn't recommend going there anymore, because I've been 2 or 3 times. First time was great, second time not so great, third time just didn't enjoy it. And I got a lot of comments saying, yeah, I didn't have a good time in Bali, And then I had a lot of other people saying, yeah, the touristy areas have become overrun and there is a toxic element to Bali, you're right, but have you been to the north? Have you seen the beautiful rolling hills, the volcanoes, the natural nature parks, the quaint local villages? Have you seen the north? Have you seen the whole island before you write it off? And my answer was no. I've never gone further than Ubud. And they said, well, how can you write a place off if you've only ever seen a small area of Bali? And I was like, you're right. That's a stupid concept. That's a stupid mindset. I haven't seen the whole of the country, not the country, but the island. And I am saying that it's a no-go. That would be like me saying, don't go to Thailand because Bangkok is shit. Even though I love Bangkok, right? I can't just write off a whole big country or a big area because I didn't like one area. So I've decided to go to Bali tomorrow. I'm taking a little backpack. I've rented a motorbike. And I'm not going to bother with Kuta or Canggu or Ubud. I'm not going to bother with all of that because I've been there 3 times and had good and mostly overrated experiences there. Didn't really enjoy it. Not for me. But I'm going to go north, past all of that, and going to explore the rest of the island and give it another chance. Try to widen my perspective and get a better idea of Bali. So in terms of what's coming up, we've got Singapore content Sunday and Friday. So two videos for sure, maybe a third. Although I had a lot of issues with the content, with the footage because I had a microphone issue. So we'll see if I can put together a third video. Then there will be 2 or 3 videos from my trip to Korea. I went to Korea for just over a week, 8 days. Had a great time. I just took my iPhone and I was filming stuff, and I think there's some cool content there that I want to share with you for sure. Then the Bali trip will come out. It'll probably be a 3-part series, mini series, just exploring the north of Bali, trying to share my experiences in the north of Bali, and then giving you my official opinion on Bali at the end. Like, does the north make up for the, hype crowd, Instagram cringe influence a lot down south, or is it worth going to now? I really want to have a good time in Bali. I really hope I have good weather. I hope all of these Instagram comments that I got are true and that it is beautiful. I've had a little look on Google Maps and I've had a little look on pictures and videos, and it looks really, really good. So let's hope I have a good time. And then I'm off to Europe. We're going to Europe this summer. Changing completely my plan. Instead of going to Nepal and climbing the Himalayas, because I don't want to go with a guide, I'm going to the Alps instead. There's an exclusive announcement. I'm not really keen on announcing where I'm going anymore, because when I announced Everest Base Camp, it seemed like everybody else was like, oh, let's go there. X says, stop singing music videos and I'll watch you again. All right, mate. I hope I have a good time. Thanks, Mark. I like Paddy's music and singing. It gives a different vibe. Don't worry, the singing's not coming back. It was just a fun experiment, and I wanted to make you smile. And I wanted to have a laugh. Yeah, AG1. Yes, this stuff is so good. This is what I wish I had in the Philippines. But I didn't get into this until like 6 weeks ago. Thanks, Teddy. Thanks, Cos. I will keep doing my thing. Rufio, Singapore content's coming out this Sunday. Okay, Jeraine, I'll take that into note. The problem with the music thing is it was expensive. I spent a lot of money on the production side of creating the music. Wouldn't be sustainable long term unless I got like a million subs or something. Ah, okay, Moondust, I understand. Yes, I will be going to the Luzon area next time I go to the Philippines. I want to go to the northern area of Luzon. I want to go to that crazy reef. I want to go to that volcano, and I want to try and see whale sharks in Don Sol, like the proper way, you know, not the manufactured way. Hey, John, what's up, man? Don't worry about it. We're just finishing up. What's coming up in Singapore? Just kind of like chilled, laid back travel vlogs from me and my girlfriend's short trip, you know, nothing groundbreaking, just cute vlogs that will make you smile and make you go, oh, looks nice. Don't expect like some mad next level adventure from Singapore or Korea. JY, what's up, dude? How are you, man? I've been to India, Din. I've been to India 3 times. 4-month trip, 6-week trip, and a 4-week trip. India is mental. And it's not somewhere that I want to go this year or next year, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, okay. You lived in Zurich. Nice. That's where I land. I land in Zurich. Yes, Martin, Africa's on my list. Look, the thing about being a travel vlogger is you have an almost infinite amount of places to go to, and stories to tell and experiences to share and stuff. So it's just never ending. I can only go one country at a time, one experience at a time. I like to travel a little bit slowly, take my time, no need to run around and just try and explode on the scene, or I'm just chilling out and trying to just create stuff that people want to see or don't. I'm kind of in a good place mentally with the whole YouTube thing. I've really separated my YouTube channel from who I am as a person. At first, they were really connected. They were the same thing. I was my YouTube channel, and it kind of messed me up a little bit. But I'm quite good now. I'm quite good at just keeping it. Over there is my channel. That's where I go to work. I travel. I fly somewhere and I film and I edit. And then over here is me and my private life. And they're 2 separate things now, which is nice. Well, thank you, X. I do try to make good videos, but don't worry, there's no more singing to come. Dion, Cuba, yes, Cuba's on my list, big time. My friend who goes there quite often and shows pictures on Instagram, it looks really unique. Okay, last question. Okay, I'm gonna drink this and I'm gonna pick a question to finish up on, because I really must get on with my day. Just want to say thank you for not only joining the podcast and the live stream, but thanks for the support. It seems like no matter where I've gone in the past 2 years, you guys have followed. I was really worried when I left Thailand that no one would care anymore, but the support you guys have given me just watching my videos has been great. I just want to say thank you. Vietnam was a roaring success. I loved that series, and you guys loved it too. Thank you. Laos, Cambodia, the same. Tried something new in the Philippines, and I really enjoyed expressing myself. I hope you've enjoyed the debrief and hearing a little bit more of the stuff that I didn't share. And I'd love to know, I'd love to just invite you to continue to just relax wherever you are, if you watch me and all the other channels that you watch on your break at work or on the weekend, and you cast it to the TV. Actually, I just found out this morning, I was asked by a company to share with them my operating system statistics, which means how many people are watching on iPhone, on Android, or casting to the TV, or watching on a MacBook. And 50% of my audience, 50% cast it to the TV, which means you're sat down on the sofa, a glass of wine, and someone says, let's put Paddy on the telly. And that's really, really good that you want to watch me like that. So just thanks for all the support. And I'm going to take one last question, and it's going to be at random. Show You Off says, why didn't you name your channel something like Paddy Travels or something else instead of your full name to create a disconnection to yourself. Because I didn't want to be a travel channel forever. Maybe I'll be a family channel one day, or I'll build a house channel, or I'll get a dog, or I'll become a female ice skater for the Olympics. We're living in this world where anything's possible these days, and so I didn't want to put myself into a box. And I was actually gonna call myself Mr. Dream. And then my friend said I sound like a porn star, so I changed it, and I had so many names, and in the end I just thought Paddy Doyle says exactly what it does on the tin. And the stress that having a YouTube channel called Paddy Doyle gave me at the beginning was not so much because of the name, it was just because of the fact that I had gone all in. I'd quit my job, I'd sold everything, and I picked up a camera and started driving a motorcycle, and I was driving around with no income, or trying to build an income, and I freaked out. And when views went up, I thought that's because I'm great, and then when views went down, I thought it's because I was bad, and I took it too personally, the good and the bad. And so lots of advice, lots of experience and learning has taught me, like, it doesn't matter what the channel's called, there is a clear definition now, cut down the middle. And doing a live stream like this is a good way to kind of bring the real Paddy back to the channel Paddy, you know what I mean? Because, you know, at the end of the day, my content is edited, it's well thought out, and I spend a lot of time trying to make it look as nice as possible. Whereas here, you know, I just woke up, had a shower, and eating my breakfast, talking candidly. And it would be nice to do more live streams, and it's something that I want to do more of this year. So keep an eye out for more lives, especially just random live streams with no plan, just to connect with you guys. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody. I've really got to go. And I really appreciate everything. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the week and have a great weekend. Love you long time.